Hi everybody, Adam Steele here. Massive news. Waves are the last big audio production company not to be using a subscription model. And as of today, that's all changed. They're going full subscription, full steam ahead. Let's check it out. So I was out earlier today with my daughter. She was learning how to swim, and that was really sweet. And she did make some very big waves. Terrible joke aside, this is a quite monumental day because several years ago now, Stephen Slate and Slate Digital were the first major audio company to really push and go with the all-access subscription model, where you could pay them originally $25 a month and then later $15 to have all of their plugins, and as anything came out, it was added to that at no extra cost. And then Plugin Alliance have followed suit. Avid with Pro Tools have followed suit. A lot of the major companies now are moving to this model, and now Waves have finally jumped on board. This is going to be an absolutely huge seismic shift for this company, because they're going to a model where you're not going to be able to buy any of their plugins at all. No perpetual licenses. Now, they did make it clear, if you have already bought perpetual licenses for Waves products, you will continue to own them. They're not going away. You don't lose them because the company's moving to this model, but going forward, you're not going to be able to buy new Waves plugins separately. They will just come in either the new Waves Essential subscription, which is $15 a month, or the Waves Ultimate, which is $25 a month. And those are your two choices. Now, looking at my desktop for a minute here, which is risky for a lot of people, I know, but here we go. I have the things that I've been buying for a while. So I've got things like the Horizon Bundle, which covered a lot of what I was using. I've been using Low Air for a long time as kind of a secret weapon for my bass. What else? The J37 tape, the Abbey. What else? The J is this tape machine. Yes, this very one, which you can see me hugging. That is the original tape machine, one of the tape machines that the Beatles were using at Abbey Road to produce things like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club. So I'm no stranger to using Waves plugins, but you'll see a lot of them are like version 10, version 12. I've actually been using Waves plugins since all the way back in version 5, way back in 2004, when some of the plugins like the Q Series EQs and the C4, I think was out, the multi-band, were way ahead of anything that you could get natively in, say, Cubase at the time, which is what I was using, and a lot better than some of the inbuilt Pro Tools plugins at that time. We've come a long way, and Waves have made a lot of new plugins since then. And so the Waves Essential has what looks like a little bit of everything. The guys at Waves have sent me a list of what is in each of these bundles. The Waves Ultimate is pretty much everything. In fact, I say pretty much, I think it is every plugin. Everything they make is going to be in there because you're not going to be able to buy them perpetually, so they've just gone everything. All the Abbey Road stuff, all the CLA stuff, including the 2A and 3A. The 3As are kind of a little secret weapon on my vocal chain. All the Eddie Kramer stuff, Greg Wells stuff, all the Manny Marroquin plugins, Maserati plugins, all the One Knob stuff, all the Renaissance plugins, everything. All included in the Waves Ultimate, but the Waves Essential has a lot of the ones that I would use in day-to-day stuff rather than the slightly more odd things. What would I use? The C4 multiband I use a lot. The CLA 76 is an 1176 compressor that I used to use all the time and still go back to sometimes because it really is kind of solid. De-esser, it's a classic de-esser. It's one of my favorites because it doesn't get in the way too much. H-comp and H-delay. H-delay is a great delay because it's very versatile whilst being quite simple. Max bass, low air, R bass, all the Renaissance stuff is included in the essentials. And there's stuff in here as well that I've not used in a while. SSLE channel, that was great. That was one where I could crank the input, crank the high end on something like a guitar bus or a vocal bus, and it wouldn't just distort out or be piercingly high. It would saturate in a really nice way. Vitamin is one of those that I should go back to using because it was really useful to gently enhance some things like backing vocals, background guitars, things that I wanted to kind of shift slightly out of the stereo image, but not by completely screwing the phase up. Vitamin was a really good way of doing that. So there is a lot. Oh, the Pultec EQ, that's in Waves Essential, which again can still go toe to toe with some of the competing brands' Pultec style EQs, like the one from Acoustica Audio and the one from UAD. Some people say, oh, this one's better, that one's better. Depending on how much you're paying, of course, because the old UAD stuff before they now moved to, oh look, a subscription model, just like everybody else. The UAD stuff was obscenely expensive. Now, another reason that I have showed you my list of plugins there is that included Horizon, which I bought a couple of versions ago because it encompassed a lot of what I needed. But I've been looking at the Mercury Bundle, which was their everything bundle, for many years, and I've been tempted a few times to buy it. Originally, that was $6,000 or $7,000. It's been on sale for $3,000 and recently more like $1,500. I think with the plugins that I own, they give you kind of a knockdown discount. The lowest I've ever seen that was $1,250 or so. I can't remember the exact number, but it was roughly that. Now, for a lot of the naysayers for subscription models, I would say that if I had to buy the Mercury Bundle outright for all the extra plugins, that would have cost me, $1,250, having already spent all this extra money. And now I would have to use the Ultimate Bundle for 5 solid years to pay the exact same amount of money, and I wouldn't have to pay it all in one hit. I would pay it spread out over 5 years with no interest, no finance plan, no credit check, all that kind of stuff. It just means that I don't have a big upfront cost. Now, as a recording studio and a business, $1,250 is a significant chunk of money, but it's kind of part of the cost of doing business. But for most home producers or kind of project studio producers, that is far too much money to be spending in one hit on something that you can't physically hold. Something like a DI box or an interface or a compressor that's physical. Those things have inherent solid physical value, and software kind of doesn't, which is where, a lot of people have complained about the old Waves update plan, me included. I am no kind of, well, I'm not going to hide that fact. I was always quite grumpy with the concept of, oh, you bought this, well, now it's out of date, you'll have to pay us again to make it updated. I always thought that was not a good business model. But when they implemented that business model way back in the dark ages, nobody was really doing anything of that kind of comparative quality, and I think they finally kind of cottoned on and realized that they can't do that anymore, and it's been bad for business and probably losing them customers. But now moving to the subscription model, I don't think there's going to be a Waves update plan, because what is there to update? If you're constantly kind of paying on the subscription model, then it's in their best interest to make sure that the latest versions are available to you all the time. Any new plugins are available to you. Everything going forward will be made compatible with your new hardware, because like my M2 MacBook, I think with version 13 and 14 were the ones that it supported, so all my old version 12 plugins like Horizon wouldn't work on that. And now all the Wave stuff that I've got will work on my MacBook without me having to pay any more. The old kind of second license thing I'm going to have a look at as well, because it used to be that when you bought a plugin, you got 2 licenses for that first year whilst you were on the Waves update plan. So I'm going to have to investigate about that, because I used to use that in such a way that this computer, my mixing computer in Studio B, would have the second license, and the tracking machine in Studio A would have the first license. And because I would physically be in one location at once, I figured that would be absolutely fine. I did have some issues with that, because now I've got the third machine, the MacBook, so I shifted all my licenses to a USB stick, which isn't ideal because USBs are, they're fallible, they break And if they break, you can't reclaim the licenses back off them, so you've got to go through some extra hoops, and you can only do that once a year, otherwise you end up in a world of pain. So hopefully that's something that can be resolved now. I think it's in Wave's best interest to make sure that everybody possible can get hold of their plugins without using nefarious methods, shall we say, without having to sail the high seas, yar, you know, because in this kind of model of subscription, if somebody wants to try out your plugins, they could probably pay, what, yeah, $15 for a month. Try them all, see if they like them all, or $25 for the month, give them all a go, and if they don't like them, that's fine, but if they do like them, they keep paying. And even when I was buying Wave's plugins at, you know, $39.99 on sale, because they've been perpetually on sale for a while, a lot of them, that's great until they're out of date and the update plan pops up again. Because at that point, I, like a lot of grumpy old men, will be like, oh, I'm not paying that. And then they'll get out of date and I'll use an alternative from a different brand because I've got something else that works. You know, it's well known that as we get older, we tend to stick to what we know unless something forces our hand, and then we'll go for the easiest option, alternative. That's how humans are. And that's why a lot of us that are watching this video will probably be like, rejoice, no more Waves update plan. But then they'll be like, oh, now I've got to pay Waves on top of Slate, on top of Plugin Alliance, on top of Avid. It's all a matter of perspective, because if you were buying these plugins or software of any kind outright beforehand, you were doing a big lump sum and you had to find that money from somewhere. Now you don't have to find those lump sums, but if you're smart about your money, you will allocate and say, right, like for this tax year, if it's $25 a month, that works out at 12 months at $300. So I'm now paying $300 for this year for these plugins. I might not have paid it yet, but I'm going to allocate that money. That is there. That is marked. That is how much money I need to get those plugins, which, again, compared to the Mercury Bundle on sale at $3,000, pretty good deal. But you've just got to work these things into your cost of doing business. It's not ideal for everybody, I know, but there are always free plugins of everything. So, you know, if the argument maybe is that if you weren't paying for it before, you're probably not going to be paying for it now. And a lot of the older engineers and producers, older than me, and I'm mid-30s, are probably going to be like, well, I've already got these plugins that I've been using on my 2009 MacBook that's powered by Steam and will never die. And it's like, good for you. Great. Brilliant. So what happens when that machine dies and your old plugins stop working because they were designed for computers from a bygone era? Welcome to the subscription age. So it may have been a great investment at the time, but you can't rely on that forever because, you know, to be fair to Waves, they've got to keep developing the same plugins over and over again in the background to make sure that they're compatible with new hardware, compatible with new systems like new Pro Tools. AAX wasn't a thing when Waves plugins were first made. VST3 wasn't a thing when Waves plugins were first made. M1 Macs were definitely not a thing, etc, etc, etc. And so for them now to have a constant revenue from companies like me and people, you know, the man on the street, they're now going to have that coming in steadily to go, right, we can allocate this much money to developing new plugins. We can allocate this much money to keeping the plugins working on brand new hardware. We can allocate this money to, you know, maintaining good public relations, etc, etc, and not have to then worry about how are we going to bring in the next kind of money from the next new plugin, and have everything up in the air as a mystery, which if that was my business, I'd probably be in a much better state doing that than with the old model. What's your opinion on the new Waves subscription model? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. As for now, thank you everybody for watching. I'm going to get back to doing what I was doing with editing lots of video and writing a new album. So thanks everybody with the patrons who support us on Patreon. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.